There is a wild spirit within us. It drives us to the precipice of impossible challenges and calls us to imagine a better future. There are those who embrace this spirit. They greet impossible feats with unreasonable determination and will stop at nothing short of breakthrough. We call them entrepreneurs. It is a grueling path. When you work at the edge of what's possible, success has no formula. And lessons are hard-won through trial and error. For those whose imagination is at odds with the status quo, the risk is high. The hours are long. And success is uncertain. Breakthrough can seem impossible. But breakthrough does not need to happen alone. MaRS is a community of entrepreneurs in the heart of Canada's leading innovation district. MaRS gives entrepreneurs a platform to collaborate, discover, and commercialize their ideas to improve the future of energy, work, education, and healthcare. MaRS, our future matters.
Good evening, everyone. Warm welcome to MaRS. My name is Ilse Drönicht, and it is really a great pleasure to have you here this evening. I know these June evenings are incredibly precious commodities, so we're very grateful that you're here this evening to share one of those evenings with us to launch LegalX, which is a community of new emerging companies and a wide range of players in the legal sector. And connecting this extraordinarily exciting capacity that's developing in Toronto and making sure that it's plugged into what's happening elsewhere in the world. As you see there, our mission here at MaRS is to make sure that Canada can compete and succeed in what is an incredibly fast-moving and global innovation economy. And we know that Canada is already known for its excellent legal sector, and that sector not only contributes to, but perhaps more importantly, underpins or is the foundation of much of our economy, and in particular, much of our knowledge economy. But as is the case elsewhere, this segment of the economy is also feeling some serious pressure points from a number of different areas, obviously technology being a very big one. And we know that the pace of technology is just going to continue to accelerate, and it's now impacting absolutely every aspect of legal work. And advanced use of technology, whether it's artificial intelligence or predictive search or new fancy deep analytics or other areas, are increasingly encroaching into the legal space. The other area, of course, is globalization, where both demand for and the supply of legal services are now increasingly global. And we will hear tonight from our panel about some of the models to meet both surge of demand and increasing deep expertise through global supply solutions. And then, of course, there is also demographics. A new generation of lawyers want to work differently, and a new generation of consumers want to consume legal services differently, all of which put a lot of pressure on the business model of the traditional law firm and the billable hour. Because agile and lean product development and service delivery is here and is going to continue. So it is not surprising, given those pressure points, that we're seeing a lot of new firms emerging in this space, some from inside the legal profession, but also from outside that profession, here in Toronto and elsewhere in the world, and that established players are sort of rethinking the way they do business and figuring out how to partner differently with each other and with these young firms. And the goal of LegalX is really to enhance the capacity for innovation in the legal sector, to make sure we help build the partnerships that will position Toronto and Canada well in this fast-moving space. And we want Toronto and Canada's legal sector to absolutely thrive in this brave new world. And it matters not just for the legal sector, but for a whole range of other areas of our economy. So a warm welcome, and it is my great pleasure to hand over the evening to Aaron Solomon, who is known to many of you. Aaron is perhaps the most global person I know. He has worked pretty much everywhere in the world, and he knows where every single excellent faux restaurant is in Asia. He's also an entrepreneur and a lawyer and a dog lover. Aaron.
Sometimes you're in a room with people and you talk about it a year later, you talk about it 2 years later, you talk about it 10 years later. I guarantee you, because I know so many people in this room tonight, this is going to be the kind of gathering where 10 years from now you say, you remember that awesome panel? You remember that startup that launched that night at MaRS? This is that room. And I'll tell you why it's this room. You're going to hear this more than once tonight. This is the time. We're launching LegalX at exactly the right time. And Ilse talked about things global. This is absolutely a global play for us here at MaRS, as it is for people in the room, because the kind of solutions that we're all working on are global solutions. Why are we doing it here at MaRS in Toronto? Well, when we have our networking time later on, I'd suggest that you all look around. This is an amazing place. This is an amazing innovation center. We get things done. We're going to get things done with this. When you think of legal innovation, one of the first places you're going to think of in the entire world is MaRS. And I promise you, I'm not going to take a lot of your time tonight. This is all you're going to hear from me. I want to get right to it. First, I want to introduce my fellow troublemaker, as we're often called around here, Jason Weiss, wherever he is. I can't wait. Jason and I have been making trouble in the legal space for about a year and a half, and Jason is going to be moderating a fine panel in a few minutes. But first, I want to introduce a startup that's going to be launching this evening. And Jason, when we talked about these guys, first thing I said to you ever about this company that I've been working with for about a year and a half was, I would totally invest in this company. And I would tell all my friends they should consider investing in this company. They're really great.
That they are, and extracting money from you means that's a litmus test that's pretty high.
So we're going to introduce LawScout, and they're going to get the event going this evening. Darren DeChain from LawScout, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Aaron, those were really kind words. Thank you so much. We are absolutely thrilled to be here today as part of LegalX. My name is Eric Hoffner, this is Shane Murphy, and we're two of the three co-founders of LawScout. LawScout is a team of lawyers and developers working to change the way clients hire lawyers. The way we do it, an online, intuitive platform that enables small businesses to easily hire, manage, and pay for their legal services all online for upfront and fixed fees. Now, before getting into the features of LawScout, we'd like to take a step back and provide a bit of background about ourselves as well as how we ended up on the stage here today. Both Shane and I are practicing lawyers. I was practicing in Edmonton for the last 6 years, and Shane was practicing here in Toronto. But we've been working on LawScout in the background for the last 2 years, and 3 weeks ago, we left our full-time law positions and are now focusing on LawScout full-time and bootstrapping the company ourselves. But we're only 2 out of the 3 co-founders.
It really started with this guy. He is our CTO, Travis Hewlett. As you can tell by his beard, he is a non-lawyer, as we call it in the legal industry. Anyway, Derek, Travis, and I have been friends now for almost 20 years. Travis couldn't join us tonight because he's currently working hard in San Francisco. But the idea of LawScout was really birthed about 2 years ago when Travis was in the process of exiting a startup that he had built called Ghostbird Software. Now, through the process of building Ghostberg, he'd retained lawyers in the past, but this acquisition required him to retain and obtain legal work to an extent he hadn't had to do to that point in his career. And naturally, throughout the legal process, he had a lot of questions, and he directed them to me and Derek as we were his lawyer friends. And Travis's questions were questions that lawyers hear all the time in the course of their practice. Questions like, why can't my lawyer give me an exact quote for how much this is going to cost? Why is there no strict timeline or schedule that anyone seems to be adhering to? And why are articling students and junior associates building their time with this file when I've never spoken to them and have no idea what they're doing? Is this the way the legal industry really works?
Our answer for Travis was yes. Yes, that is the way the legal industry worked. It was normal for your final bill to be much higher than your initial quote. It was normal for you to be confused at what stage of the legal process you were at, but it wasn't like the lawyer in the law firm that Travis hired was doing a poor job. They were doing a fine job. It's just that's the way law was done. But then Travis asked Shane and I a more difficult question. Well, why is law done this way? And Shane and I didn't have a good answer for Travis. Our best answer we could come up with was, well, it's the way it's always been done. As you can imagine, that didn't sit well with any of us. So it's from this point that the three of us decided to start building LawScout.
So the question we started with was, what if we started with a blank slate? And what if we looked at the legal industry the way a startup founder looks at an industry? What could we do to give the client an experience that they will love and a product they'll be proud to have? And that's what we did when we built LawScout, is we stepped into the client's shoes and tried to give them that experience. So now, when a client goes to LawScout.ca, they click Get Started, and they're immediately confronted by a simple graphic interface which offers them some options for identifying their legal needs at this specific stage in their business's progress. So for example, if I'm taking on some new employees in my small business, I click on the employee button, provide some more information. LawScout will connect you then to a lawyer with expertise in that area who will provide services to you at a fixed fee that's been disclosed to you in advance. And once the lawyer's been retained, we have an online project work group. This way, the client gets updates on what their lawyer has done, the most recent work that's been done, where they are in their progress on this specific project, and what's remaining. So here we're trying to answer those fundamental questions. How much is this going to cost? And what is being done at each stage? And this is our answer to those questions. But there's also advantages to lawyers too, and there's reasons why the lawyers we've shown this product to seem to love it. We've automated the client intake process, and most importantly, we've automated online invoicing and billing through features built directly into LawScout. So the lawyer knows he or she is going to get paid that fixed fee that was disclosed to the client in advance of them being retained.
So why now? Why do we think that clients and lawyers are ready to do law differently? Well, first, we're a team of lawyers and developers that are well positioned both in terms of our technology background as well as our experience background to deliver a truly remarkable client-lawyer experience. Second, Canada's behind in legal technology. We're behind in England, we're behind Australia, we're behind the United States. Part of this is due to the fact of the regulatory environment in each jurisdiction, but what that also means is there's a huge opportunity for legal tech in Canada today. But finally, take a look around. I think we have over 200 people in this room today, and we're all here for one reason. We're really excited about the future of law. Shane, Travis, and I, we share that passion deeply.
So here we are now, but we'd like to focus for 1 minute on where the legal industry is going. Just a few weeks ago, the head of Google in Canada, Sam Sebastian, was speaking in Vancouver. And during his talk, he said the following. He said, "Today with technology, every business is a digital business. Every business is going to be a software company over the next 5 to 10 years. And with LawScout, we believe it's time for lawyers to acknowledge that the legal industry is no different. Clients are going to demand that lawyers work for them online, that they work efficiently, and they work transparently. So with LawScout, we're building infrastructure for legal services to be provided in this new era.
And with that, Travis, Shane, and I are absolutely thrilled to announce that today, Law.ca is officially live. And we encourage you all to visit the site and follow us along as we expand the number of jurisdictions in which we operate, expand the number of legal services being offered, and expand our lawyer network. Thank you, and hope you enjoyed the panel.
I want to be those guys. They're awesome. The next person I'm going to have you see today is also unbelievable. His name is Kian, and he came to us from Seattle, where he is in the Microsoft Venture Accelerator, and he's going to tell us all about where he is and where he's going with this company called Beagle. You're all mic'd up.
Yeah. Test. All right. Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Kian O'Sullivan. It's not Cyan, it's not Cayenne, it's Kian. My mom loves to give us strange names. Actually, my sisters have worse names than mine, so. I'm the founder of Beagle, and when I say founder, I've actually got a great team who are also equity holders. My history is that IT paid for law school. I was the tinker, I was the coder, I was the one who was kind of breaking apart computers and coding and hacking away. And I realized that, well, I wasn't going to get into med school doing that, so I wanted to do something else, and I went to law school. And when I was in law school, I realized something very quickly. I did not want to be a lawyer. But I went through it and I finished off, and while I was there, I continued doing IT. And then I moved off, I lived in Bermuda for a couple of years doing IT, and at the same time I studied, I did my New York State Bar exam, which, by the way, Bermuda is a very difficult place to study when you're doing your New York Bar. I passed it eventually, and I wanted to stay on the business side. I didn't want to get into the nitty-gritty, the pedantic, academic. It's very important stuff, but from a day-to-day business perspective, I wanted to deal with problems like, how can we talk about who's responsible if an internet cable goes out and my business is relying on that? How do we understand the business risk? So I used to hate when people would say, there's a difference between a business issue and a legal issue. No, there's not. Everything comes down to money. Everything comes down to if something goes wrong, your business could go under. That's a business issue. So I said to myself, I want to get into this side. So I started negotiating contracts. And I never wanted to be called a lawyer, and I said I was a contract negotiator. And that actually really helped because it helped me deal with other parties quite well. And I dealt with a lot of contracts. I dealt with service agreements, I dealt with leases, I dealt with mergers and acquisitions, I dealt with everything. So I negotiated probably about $1 billion worth of contracts myself. Every single clause, term that you can imagine, I probably went through it. And one thing came up over and over again, month end. Everybody in the companies that I worked for hated me at month end. Whether it was the buyer, whether it was the seller, whether it was an executive who I needed to get permission or approval on a particular stance. And I thought, why is this? Why is this such a problem? What is the fundamental issue we're dealing with when we're looking at contracts and trying to navigate them? It's only words, it's just English. Common thing I would say to people is, have you looked at it? Have you read it? But the minute it says contract on it, the minute it says agreement, the minute it says terms and conditions, over the fence it goes. And now we're in this battle of the expert trying to read it, go back to the person who asked for help and ask the questions. That takes a lot of time. So then I sat back and I said, okay, well, if somebody asks me again to have a quick look at something, I'm going to snap. I'm at a barbecue, family reunion. Oh, I actually had this quick little comment. Can I just have a quick look? Then I kind of rewind a little further. If I talk to any of my lawyer friends and I say, we're going to take a stopwatch, and we've got 5 minutes, let's do a quick look. We're probably going to come up with 80% of the same thing. How do you get out of it? Who's on the hook if things go south? Who has to do what? Maybe intellectual property, whatever. But we're going to look and spot the same stuff. So then I thought, okay, well, if I could do that automatically, how would that improve my relationship with stakeholders in a company? How would that improve business? business, at the end of the day, is dependent on these contracts. And there was an interesting study done about a month ago, it was published a month ago, that said, if you read every single privacy policy on every single web page that you went to, it would take you 76 days per year. Right? There is the problem. Everyone knows one thing, contracts suck. All right, we know. All right, so let's accept it, and now let's try to deal with it in a different way. So I had a friend of mine who asked me to look over a contract for him on weekends, and he said that he was having a business meeting on Monday, he wanted me to have a quick look at a contract. All right, no problem, buddy, no problem, George, I'll do that for you. I should have asked him how long it was first. It was 90 pages. And I got it on a Saturday, and he wanted to have a business conversation on a Monday, whether they were going to proceed with this. It took me less time to program a small little script to go through and automatically pull out the keywords that I would look for anyways. Will, may, must, shall, always, guarantee, never. The standard stuff. Now, am I going to get it right? No, but I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm going to get a lot more right with 90 pages because that program is going to be consistent through the whole thing. Me, by page 45, I'm probably on year number 4 and I'm not doing any good. So I said, okay. I handed him this spreadsheet, pulled out all the clauses, and he was like, wow, there's something here. So then I socialized and I said, what are we trying to solve? And what we're trying to solve is we know contracts suck. We know people don't want to look at them. We know 80% of businesses, small, medium-sized businesses, do not engage outside counsel. We know 70% of them don't engage them outside counsel when they know they need to. They still don't do it because they handle contracts in one of 3 ways. They don't, they do a very poor job, or they spend too much time or money. So I said, you know what, forget this. We're going to automate this, and we're going to give people a starting point. Now, I'm not trying to replace the lawyers. What I'm trying to do is empower the business decision makers to be able to understand what they're doing so they can make decisions based on fact and not feeling. And then we also look at the way that we consume data nowadays. Social media driven, tweets, SMS, Facebook updates, micro messages. And that can't be done when you're looking at a 29 or 90 page narrative. So the way that contracts are, it's actually far more distant and far away from the way that we actually consume data now. So Beagle is connecting those dots. Beagle throws technology into an environment where you can still use your shortcut keys from WordPerfect 5.1. You can still use those same shortcuts. So we're talking about a system that's very old. And we're talking about something that needs fixed. But once I give the user the power to understand what they focus on, how do I give them the power to then engage in assistance and to collaborate? And so that's what Beagle does. So we're going to run a little bit of an experiment. I guess, can we press play on that video link? Okay, I'm going to try to talk through this here. So what I'm going to show you is the run through of what Beagle does. It uses artificial intelligence to automatically read a contract, tell you who's responsible for what, tell you how to get out of things, tell you any external references, and it provides you a feature-rich collaborative environment for you to be able to work on and to be able to deal with stakeholders. So what we're looking at now is my profile, and I'm going to select an agreement that I've uploaded. And here you're going to see that we've identified in this agreement that you've got customer and Acme are the 2 parties, and it tells you the machine confidence in it. You can see from a heat map perspective that the customers assumed a huge amount of responsibility and the vendors waived a significant amount of responsibility. You can see that both parties have 6 ways out of it and 3 of them are mutual. Doesn't matter how long the contract is, I can see it. Well, let's see the clauses. I now see the clauses that I've identified. All the responsibilities from a customer perspective are listed there. I can click on a clause, and what that'll do is bring me to where that clause is in the contract so that I can read it in context. So I can either look at it in a small individual way, or I can look at it in context. I can click on a clause and be able to see exactly what's going on, or be able to redline or modify it. So as an individual tool, I can use this to be able to navigate and to be able to understand what's there. In this particular clause, I don't like it, so I'm going to make a change. So it's going to show up like a traditional red line. Click on it, make a change, and make your submit. We are now centralizing this so that everything is tracked, so that you have one center of all those clauses. No more exchanging Word documents back and forth. Oh, I modified the wrong version. Sorry, let's go back. You can see that you're getting notifications in terms of anything that you do. In here, I made a change. I'm going to ask Sam to contribute. Say, Sam, I need your help on this. It's going to send Sam an email immediately and give her a link to be able to go to that clause so that she can add her comments. She can like it, she can dislike it. I can start to add tags to it. That's the secret. When you add tags, the system learns what you think that clause means to you, and over time, it starts to preemptively tag things for you. It gets smarter the more you use it. This particular clause, I'm okay with it, so I'm going to like it. The system learns based on that behavior. In this particular clause here, wrong clause. Okay, I just got the video a couple days ago. On the left-hand side, you can see that you can like or dislike. On the right-hand side, you can see that you have the entire clause in context. But there's a problem. Sam never showed up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what, Sam, you did show up. I've got other things to look at. Let's see about inviting somebody else. And this is where you start to see the real true collaboration. We use the artificial intelligence to give us a starting point. It's like a ball of cake. How do you consume it? Let's start from somewhere. So here what we've done is we're inviting Bogdan to say, I need your help with this particular issue, please. And Bogdan's going to receive that email, and then he's going to contribute. Now the great thing about this is doing exactly what I used to do all the time. I'd go through the agreement, I'd highlight things, and then I'd turn around and send an email to everybody. And I'd ask for their input. How do you track that? How do you understand that they've read it? So the main objective here is to empower the users to be able to ensure that they're going to be able to deal with those contract clauses or elements very quickly. You can see now that Bogdan is logged in. So while Bogdan is logged in, he's going to be able to go to that clause immediately, and I'm going to do a little bit of work, and I'm going to see what ends up happening with Bogdan. Now, because Bogdan is logged in, and it's all on the same system, that's going to be tracked, and I know that. So I just liked a particular clause there. I can like it over on the left-hand side as well. Over there, you see the track changes. Oh, real time with Bogdan. Bogdan's decided to do something. Bogdan's actually pretty good. He does a lot of stuff, by the way. So I got the notification, I click on it, and now that tells me, you can see Bogdan made a change, and you can see that he's turned around and made a comment on it. He can like or dislike it as well. And what you'll see here is that it's changing from pink to a light green based on him liking or disliking it. That shows the real-time elements of that collaboration. So what we do when we're handling contracts, sometimes it's in isolation, sometimes it's a collaboration. We need to have that opportunity. So that's trying to be a bit of a humor there. It's tough crowd. So what the power of bringing technology to solving this problem is by giving us a starting point to digest the agreement and then set up a very simple way to be able to get stakeholder feedback. So now, small and medium-sized businesses, they can engage their counsel, their accountants, whoever it is, in microtransactions. They can send an email invite on one clause. I want you to look at this clause. Maybe that's a $150 bill. That's not a $5,000 bill for throwing over a 29-page agreement. We're actually breaking down the problem from this massive unknown into simple, small question and answer that empowers small businesses to really use that skill set of law. And I'm glad I went to law school. And I can only do this because I know this stuff and I know how important lawyers are. And lawyers get a really bad rap. So let's fix that, change the way that we're engaging with our clients by using technology. So I'm going to be around after for any questions.
So before I hand it off to Jason Moyes, who's going to be moderating this panel, let me tell you something. If you've never assembled a panel from scratch, where you had no limitations, you could invite the best people in the industry and hope they come. That's a real thrill. Then when you actually do it, and they all say they're going to come, and they all show up, that's really amazing. We got them here tonight, so that's it for me. Jason, there you go.
And maybe off the top, what I'll do is, want to pitch all the panelists, please? And we'll just seat everybody down. I'll do a quick run through who's on the panel, a little bit about why they're here. To Aaron's point, we're thrilled that this is the group that we've assembled. They represent the draw section. Yes, we've given them a quiz at the beginning. Sanjay's here. And I think we're just putting them in order to help our sound crew out. So this is our panel, and what this panel represents is a couple of things that are very much in alignment with MaRS and the mission here and what we think LegalX is going to be about. This is a global panel. These are folks that have either been in or currently are or have touched global businesses in the legal services sector. And in some cases, we've got makers, we've got thought leaders, and we've got folks that have successfully built businesses and exited. And so that's a lot of what we see in MaRS time and time again. Now it's Legal's turn. So I'm going to go through and describe who's on our panel and why they're here. So to my immediate right is Sanjay Kamlani, and Sanjay is here because he is a serial entrepreneur, and one of the companies he founded was a company called Pangea 3, which grew into be one of the largest legal process outsourcers in the world, very much a global play, and we'll have him tell us about that. For folks in the audience that aren't as familiar with what legal process outsourcing is, we'll ask Sanjay to tell us a bit about that business and what it means, and we'll get him to tell us a bit about his journey, because he represents, anytime I've been at a panel at MaRS, I'm always excited to see the folks that have built a business and successfully exited by selling it for a massive amount of money to some large business. So Sanjay's got a bit of that going for him as well as being an expert in the legal services market. Excuse me, I'm not in order here, but I'm going to throw it over to far right beside Keen. That's Monica Bay. We're thrilled that Monica could be here. Monica is very much a thought leader in the legal tech world. She's been a journalist for over 30 years covering legal, and in particular legal tech. She was the editor of the Law.ca news. She's currently a consultant and freelancer for Bloomberg. This is one of my favorite bios that I've seen in a while. The International Legal Technology Association, for those of us that are lawyers, we refer to that as ILTA, has an award for women who lead and spotlight individuals who encourage girls and women to pursue careers in science, tech, engineering, and math. It's called the Monica Bay STEM Leadership Award. Woo! Very much in alignment with the mission of MaRS. Next to Monica is a good pal of mine. That's Noah Weisberg. Noah is the founder and CEO of a company called Kira Systems, formerly known as Diligence Engine. Was a gracious sponsor of an event that Aaron and I hosted in this building in January, and he's representative of the types of things we hope to see come out of LegalX, which is to say, much like he's got a fabulous business that is servicing the legal vertical now. He will do a much better job at describing it than I will, but it is involved with the due diligence process, using visualizations in order to find data more quickly and effective. And I really enjoyed saying this at our last event. He loves it every time I say it in a public forum. His legal tech startup touches $70 billion worth of M&A transactions. They are involved On some level, that's not their revenue yet. But when you think about it, that is a big part of what their value play is. And what's really exciting for me to have Noah here is he's a Toronto guy, and yet he's trained in the US. He's got a fabulous, I can tell you, his tech startup's getting a lot of traction with professional services providers, both in the legal space and financial space. So I'm glad he's here, and thanks for coming. Next is my good pal, Mitch Kowalski, who, of the folks that are on our panel, I would think is probably the most familiar to our Toronto audience. Mitch is a good friend of Aaron and I, also spoke at our last event. He's a recognized thought leader in the legal services space. He's the Fast Case 50 Global Legal Innovator Award winner. He has a fabulous book called Avoiding Extinction, Reimagining Legal Services for the 21st Century. Here in Toronto, he helps run and facilitate a legal innovators roundtable. And then occasionally he and I sit and drink beer on stools that are around. So, another good friend of mine, I'm very pleased. Dan Lear has come in from Seattle. Dan is a prolific vlogger and very prolific in the Twitter sphere, but he does actually have a day job. He is the director of industry relations for Avvo, and I'm looking forward to having him describe what Avvo does, because it's very well known in the US. It's not a particularly well-known entity in the Canadian space, but think of Yelp, apply it to lawyers, and that's a bit of what they do. And think of the impact on the behavior of lawyers when that's how the market is reacting with them. And then, of course, we have Kian, who I think we had him listed as the CEO. I think he's got the best title of all of us. He's the top dog at Beagle. And I should also mention that both Kian and Monica are fellows at Codex, which is part of the Stanford program. And that is another great program, very much an inspiration for a bit of what we hope LegalX will become. Folks, this is your panel. Please give them a round. It's a bit of like a Royal Rumble here, but I'm going to start with a directed question. I asked Sanjay. I wanted Sanjay to sort of educate our audience a little bit, certainly on his journey with Pangea, as well as how it grew and came to be sold, but also even just a description of what it is as a business and how you see that as part of what the legal services industry is.
Okay, great, thank you. So legal process outsourcing. It might surprise you to find out or to appreciate that every law firm is an LPO. Because if you look at the definition of LPO, and if you research LPO before the year 2000, you'll find that articles about LPO are talking about law firms and talking about decisions that companies made to outsource work that was done in-house to law firms. All LPOs, what it actually means today is non-law firms that are doing a lot of what law firms do, which is taking legal work that is done by a third party for the benefit of either an individual or a company, which is exactly what law firms do. But what it's come to mean is really companies rather than law firms, either in the United States, near shore or offshore, handling certain legal functions. Typically, we're talking about functions like drafting day-to-day contracts, legal research, typically more from the standpoint of compliance. How does a company comply with a particular rule across multiple jurisdictions in which it does business? Or let's look at patents and let's look at intellectual property and study the landscape of a particular industry, and maybe we can draft applications and get them to a lawyer to do the work after people offshore have done it. So the biggest part of the LPO industry as it's known today is electronic discovery, which primarily relates to lawyers looking at documents, mostly electronic, so in hard drives or in any kind of electronic media, to determine whether they can find evidence in a case to support their claim. This is the work that law firms have typically done for clients, and today companies in India or near shore are doing to help the lawyers get that work done in a much more efficient and cost-effective way. It may be helpful to talk a little bit about how the concept was started and what the industry looked like early on. So if you go back to 2000, there was only one organization that was actually known to be doing work offshore for its own in-house legal team, which is General Electric. And in the from 98 to 2000, they were known to be saving about $2 million a year, outsourcing their own contract work to their own in-house legal people in India. And that's when Pangea 3 got started, when David Perla and I, David was the general counsel of Monster, and I had been involved in an earlier business outsourcing word processing for lawyers. We decided we can do word processing in India, why not get lawyers in India to actually do the legal work? And GE is doing it, why can't we do it for third parties the way law firms do legal work for third parties? So we set up a small company, just 15 lawyers, and decided to start offering basic services like drafting contracts, drafting patent applications, and doing basic electronic discovery. We were able to grow that business to over 800 lawyers by 2010, so in about 5 years. And in that time, literally dozens, if not up to 100 different companies started doing the same thing, to the point that you've got an industry called the LPO industry, where you've got companies in India, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, and in what they call in Europe, nearshore, in Eastern Europe and even in Northern Ireland, doing exactly the same thing, doing these functions, which I call legal functions, actual tasks that lawyers do, that you can train any lawyer who thinks, talks, and walks like a lawyer, regardless of what actual law they were trained in, to do those things. How do I draft a contract? How do I look for evidence in a case? How do I look across a field of patents and find white space, empty space, where we can actually create a new patent? Or how do I draft a patent application? People often ask, how do you do this in India if the lawyers aren't trained in US law or the law of a European country or Canada? Well, it's because a lawyer, when you come out of law school, particularly in a British common law country, you learn to think, talk, and walk in a certain way. And it's when you start your job that you actually get taught to do something. And so we're able to do the same thing in India with lawyers who make $3,000 a year instead of lawyers in the United States who make $180,000 a year, to do exactly the same thing.
Okay, so you scared the audience?
Yeah.
Congratulations. I'm wondering, but I did want to sort of give that context, not so much to talk about the labor side, which you described, but maybe you could tell us a little bit, because we're at MaRS, which is an innovation center, and while we're not focused exclusively, we are certainly partial to the technology application that sort of enables a global business like that to operate in multiple jurisdictions. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about some of the technology that's involved, or some of the technology players that sort of enabled you to launch that business.
Sure. So look, technology is obviously required to enable goods and really to allow services across the globe to be handled in a way that people used to have to do everything locally. So telecom, movement of data, collaboration tools, etc. But I think everybody knows that. What people, I think, may not appreciate is that businesses that are viewed as labor arbitrage are actually not just labor arbitrage. So Pangea 3 and the other LPOs, for example, are using technology tools every year to cut the time that lawyers spend doing the work that they do in half. So at Pangea 3, year after year, we use tools to reduce the time that we were spending for our clients literally in half. And we were incentivized to do it because we were pricing based on units, not on hourly wages, or on annual contracts. So it just made sense. and it was allowing us to stay competitive. So in electronic discovery, if you're familiar with electronic discovery, you will have heard of predictive coding. At Pangea 3, year after year, we embraced predictive coding. We licensed those tools. We were technology agnostic, which means we became experts in all the different types of technology, applied what was the best for the client, and said, hey, we're able to do this much quicker. Let's use this technology, and now let's work together to do something better and faster than before. So every year this is happening, and instead of what the technology people will tell you is that we're automating law and we're replacing the lawyers. That's not what's happening, right? We're using technology to make it more efficient and make the lawyers do a better job, and that's what the people offshore are doing also.
Thank you so much for that. Certainly want to open it up to the rest of the panel now, and maybe just throw a few questions out there, a bit of a jump ball, and see who goes after it, but I do want to hear from everybody. Maybe we'll just sort of ask the panel, because they've got an interesting point of view each amongst themselves. What do we think the critical success factors are for innovation in the legal services industry? I'll maybe just give you a moment to think, and then I'll pick somebody if somebody doesn't put their hand up. Which is easy. I do damn.
Yeah, and I'll never. I'm such a
Basically,
ball
I should
boxer.
say,
Yeah, exactly.
it's
So
so
Dan. Well, I mean, so I think this is a really interesting question. Working at Avo, and we're no longer a startup. We're about 7 or 8 years old, but we certainly have been acting like one for a number of years, and we're now growing pretty significantly. But one of the really interesting things that I learned as I came in was, and I am a lawyer by training, quickly trying to forget all of that, is that my inserting my lawyerliness actually wasn't helpful. It was sometimes counterproductive. And this is a whole other discussion to be had, but my point is, innovation in law, disruption in law, I think looks a lot like disruption in any other sector, right? It's people really focused on solving a problem very effectively and very efficiently and better than someone else has. Legal problems, they are marginally more complex and they're a little bit of a different beast. The regulatory structure makes it different, but I don't think that the challenges to actually innovating are really all that different than you might see in fintech or than you're seeing in the sharing economy or a lot of other spaces.
Mitch, and then maybe Monica, have you guys weigh in?
Yeah, let me just look at it from, you're all probably wondering, or maybe not, why the law firms aren't into this game, right? Or why aren't the big seven sisters across Canada, why aren't the mid-sized firms in Canada really saying, hang on, that's our pond, why are you playing it, right? And so that ties into what I think is you need the freedom to fail. Because as lawyers, we trained from law school, failing is bad. I failed an exam, I'm doomed, right? You don't want to fail on a fly. The client gets mad. So it's ingrained with us not to take any risk averse. But we're not given the room to try new ideas, have those ideas blow up, but then maybe pull something from it and build something new. We don't have that freedom, we don't have that safety. I think that holds back a lot of legal innovation throughout Canada, throughout the world, until you get into a startup phase where everything's brand new and everyone says, I don't know, let's just try that.
And of course, I'll just lob in quickly. I think this is both like a psychological problem and it's sort of an institutional cultural problem, right? It's on both sides, right? I mean, we're generally risk averse. Lawyers are generally, and legal services professionals, yeah, are generally risk averse, but the culture doesn't help at all.
Monica, you got some builds on that?
Yeah. When I get bad, good things happen. There's a really great book called Only the Paranoid Survive by Andrew Grove, who was the founder of Intel. And what he preached in that was you have to recognize when there's a paradigm shift. And I avoid jargon. Those of you who read me know that the word solution is banned and anything that has my name on it, and revolutionary can only be used if it's the same sentence with Stephen Jobs. That concept isn't pie in the sky. It's real. And if you had a chance to listen to any of the futurists, a bunch of them are just full of crap and not worth the time. But one of the most compelling stories is done by a fellow who I can never pronounce his last name, but his new book is called Bold. He's kind of a blowhard, but he has some really, really good concepts. And part of what he's saying is, and he's not the only one who's used this example, like Codex was toast because they didn't see what was happening when photos were moving, thank you Apple, to digital. Look at the music world. Look at all these folks whose companies collapsed because they didn't move with the inflection points. And my message to all of you is, this ain't the future. This is right now. And I'll give you a little example. I'm getting old, so I have to keep notes because I forget words because my head is like a hard drive that's overflowing, so forgive me for looking at my notes. Look at San Francisco. That's a really interesting example. I'm not talking Silicon Valley. They're in the universe of their own. But when I graduated from law school 100 years ago, San Francisco was second only to New York as the most influential area in the country, in the USA. Since then, it's been absolutely decimated. Some of the most stellar, the most visible, the most prestigious firms are gone. Bingham, McCutcheon, gone. Pillsbury, Madison, and Sutro is still there, but it ain't with the same name, and it no longer is the same entity. Heller, gone. Brobeck, gone. You know who survived? The ones who very, very, very quietly took a different path. Littler, who, if you're a liberal, you hated, but I secretly love them because they were really, really smart. They did one thing, they still do the same thing, and it's very narrow, and what they do is they represent the management side of employee issues. That's it. Nothing else. Thrive, thrive, thrive. Sedgwick was one of the first folks to really do alternate fee arrangements that you paid based on what the outcome was and you made the terms before you started the case. They also started something called Zertica, I'm probably mispronouncing that, it's a standoff company. They split it off, made it a standing solving part of the issues with the ABA and the issues that Susskind talked about morning and night. They do one practice area. They do insurance, and they do it really, really, really well. MoFo, strong personality, very, very liberal, very, very differentiated itself. And finally, Oracle. You know, Ralph Baxter was the first person to take stuff to Wheeling, West Virginia, where they were looking at ways that they could save $6 million by taking some of the so-called back office work on state. These were innovative things. Some of them you could argue sucked, but a lot of them were really, really great. And I think what the message that we have to look at, and I'm learning so much in Codex, you know, I'm kind of like a 7-year lawyer. I'm not under the hood. I'm more, what is it going to be for me, and you know, how do I use it? I don't know under the hood. But when you look at some of these things that they call computational law, where Professor Oliver Goodenough made this great comment about they did a thing on being able to do the coding for a standard contract, and he called it, and then he analogized it by calling it chutes and gates. They had chutes and it's the game, chutes and ladders. And lights went on. And I can't tell you how many people came to me because he did this wonderful keynote at Codex this year. And I wrote this thing basically, like I called it Confessions and Epiphanies, because I frankly wasn't really sure I understood this and what I was doing. And he made it look so simple. The point is, there's things that we can automate, which our two speakers, our two folks talked about with their new products, yours and your colleagues, is that if we can take the things that don't need to be done by lawyers, because you can have the coding do it for you, that frees you up to do so much else and so much better, and that's also an argument for e-discovery managed services. Anyway, I'm talking too long. My bottom line is, it's now. It's not 5 years from now, it's not 10 years from now, it's not even 6 months from now. This is really happening now. You are in a wonderful environment to be able to deal with that.
Thank you, Monica. And that very much plays along the expression that it's not mine, but I love to pull it out. We pulled it out at our event in January, which is to say, the future is here, it's just not evenly distributed. And so, that's not my quote, that's Gibson. But with that, we're very lucky on our panel to have some makers. So on the panel, so I want to throw it over to Noah, and just sort of the same question. As you're building your product and your business and starting to get some great traction, what are those critical success factors for you and folks like in your position?
So I think, just to sort of answer the previous question a little, I think the reason that sort of big law, which is the world that we think about most, hasn't innovated, is that firms lack consensus on the idea that you can make more money if you're more efficient. And that's it. Like, if firms believe that, they would be efficient.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Please do.
I promise, 1 second. The partners are completely not motivated to approve, because of the structure of the law firms, major tech things, because it will lose their money.
I don't even know if I believe that. Like, one of our largest clients is a non-law firm, a very large professional services firm. Same structure, same sort of incentives. They don't have outside investment. They don't like anything like that. They spend a ton of money on technology and improving their practice. Like, a ton of money, a ton of effort, because they fundamentally believe in their very competitive market that they will do better, they will make more money if they have better tech than others. And that's it. Like, they are convinced, they have consensus. There are certainly people, like, as I look out here, I see some people at large firms who are convinced that if they're better at their jobs, they'll make more money. But I think the critical barrier is that most firms, and even sort of as I look at these people, I know that their firms lack consensus on this idea, and that's it. That said, you can do okay. So we, just a quick sort of bit on us, we were founded in 2011. So to help people extract data out of contracts. It was me, and I worked at LegalX, a very large New York firm, and I got together with a guy with a PhD in computer science from the University of Waterloo, and we set to work trying to build technology and rip things out of contracts. We thought it would take us like 4 months. 6 months later, our system sucked. A year and a half later, our system was like pretty okay. 2.5 years later, it got to be pretty good, to the point where now when we run tests, our clients run tests, they tell us they extract data out of contracts in anywhere from 20 to 90% less time, and they do it more accurately than they would without our tech. We've never taken outside funding. We're about 25 people right now with a number of open positions, so you really can build a business in legal without people giving you money or anything like that.
Noah, can you tell us, to Mitch's point earlier about inside, say, a law firm or any other owner-operated business, there's a constraint in that they don't have a lot of room for experimentation, or you don't often hear, I think you're going to hear more increasingly of R&D being completed and executed by large firms. But can you maybe talk about the R&D effort that went into your product and how long it was?
Sure, but just like, law firms can do it. There are professional services firms that put a stunning amount of money into R&D. Law firms choose not to do that, but it has nothing to do with the structure of firms or anything like that. Like, there are professional services firms that are right now, that could be competitive with law firms, that are right now putting so much money into R&D.
So I'm just going to put this out there, otherwise Aaron's going to jump on my head. In that Aaron and I, in the journey that we've had in starting to formulate LegalX and what we can think could be we are very pleasantly surprised at the potential partnership opportunities and the folks that are coming to the table. They are very much global players. In many cases, they are professional services firms, and they're ready to innovate. I sort of want to make that point because I think that the message of the panel, I absolutely believe it resonates with me, but I can speak from what Aaron and I have seen that maybe the wind is starting to shift.
Yeah, I have a hard time evaluating. Like, certainly life is a lot easier now than it was 2 years ago or something like that. I don't know, I can't personally tease out whether it's that the wind has shifted. Certainly there's a lot more boats in the sea with us, like, which is really nice. Like, I think that actually helps us with sales, but like for us in the contract data extraction industry, there was like us and 1 or 2 other companies for a bunch of years. And then now, like if you think about yours being in that industry, like literally in the past 3 months, I've probably heard of 4 new companies. Like this is my second of 3 panels. Like 2 of my last 3 panels have featured someone in my industry on it, and like that had never happened until like April. And I think that actually makes it a lot easier for us. Like certainly, I think a lot of firm IT departments are very, and CANS departments are very adept at finding solutions in verticals that they know to purchase in, right? Like e-discovery systems, which are hugely, especially like the predictive coding, technology-assisted review systems, which are, you know, exactly like everything you'd like to see. Like they take lawyers, they make them more efficient and do more accurate work. Like those have a very sizable client base, and they have no problem selling to firms at all. I think there's lots of tech that does very well at firms. It does take some time, I think, to convince firms that what you're selling should be part of that category as well. But it is possible.
Yeah, and so Keen, just in the interest of getting everyone in on the same question, maybe you can give us your build.
You know, to Noah's point, yeah, there's a lot of companies that are popping up trying to leverage technology to make things more efficient. And when we talk about the information extraction from a contract, there's so many different reasons why you would want to do that. And one of our approaches is saying, law is not just about servicing law firms or the big firms. Law applies to everybody. And what our strategy is saying, exactly to Noah's point, we're validating the fact that this process works. Beagle are going after the small, medium-sized company who generally law is inaccessible. It's too expensive, it's too cumbersome, they don't know how to interact with lawyers in a time-efficient manner. You know, month-end, quarter-end, if they've got a contract that's going to close that day, they can't call the lawyer at 2 to get an opinion by 4, because a lawyer traditionally would say, I got to look at the whole thing. So if we look at legal innovation, we don't just look at it from the lens of a lawyer or a law firm. We look at it from how does law apply to everybody, regulations, citizens, small, medium-sized businesses. And there's just, you know, between the companies that we talked about, we are not even remotely scratching the surface of what really needs to be done. And certainly there's going to be some comparative elements where we're solving some of the same problems in similar ways, but there's a massive volume of area that we need to look at. And so it really is important for LegalX and the community to try to sit back and say, let me look at this from a grand scale, because there's so many different areas that we can start knocking off, and then collaborate to say, how are you solving that problem over here? Let's see if we can adapt that over here to this particular audience.
Just give me 2 minutes. I just super fast. So, and I love that, right? And I know we have sort of a wide swath of folks in the audience, but like, and I almost hate admitting this. Like, most of us up here, I think all of us are probably lawyers, and that is so bad. Like, I want to just blow that dichotomy up. We need your help, designers, technical people, developers, we need you. We are broken, right?
What portion of ABO is lawyer versus non-lawyer?
What do you mean?
Like, how many of the employees?
Oh,
like, you guys have 100 employees,
there
like,
are,
how many lawyers?
we have 300 employees and there are 3 attorneys. And I'm in marketing, and they don't want me to do like, they only like me because and our CEO, yeah. Yeah, and it's actually really weird when I went there, and I don't want to monopolize the time.
I have the same question to Sanjay, although he's not at Pangea any longer. What was the mix of lawyers to, you never say non-lawyer,
No,
Never.
it's
I hate that. What was the mix of lawyer to other professional staff?
Well, let me break that down. So it's a little weird because when you do outsourcing of patent work team, yeah, they're all engineers, not lawyers, but it's kind of professionals and technology people. We're probably, at best, we had out of 1,700 people today, there are probably 40 people who are technology people, and everybody else is a lawyer. The company is all about legal talent, but that's its bent. If you look at the LPO industry overall, you'll find LPO companies that are far more technology centric. Like for example, there's a company called LegalX.
Right.
LegalX is much more about technology and technology services and a lot less about legal talent. And they have developed their own technology and their own products to make the whole business of global lawyering much more efficient and more practical.
Fair enough. In fairness and disclosure of myself, my day job with a company called Elevate Services, very much along that type of business as well. I don't know the mix of lawyer to other types of professionals, but I can tell you that very thin on lawyers. I'm one of the only lawyers that I know of that are in the business at Elevate. I want to throw out another question. This one's been bandied about, but I'll tell you, I think this question I think is a reiteration of the other one, maybe from a different angle. I asked you about what are the critical success factors, of innovation. I want to ask a different question. Where are the promising opportunities for investment? And if you were an investor, where would you be investing your money? And you're not allowed to say your own company. So I'm going to start with the two makers on this because they've got insight, and also I like the idea of the constraints theory. So where would you invest your money other than your own company?
All right. Yeah, I would. Fundamentally, it's a standard recipe is problem, solution, product market fit, all of that kind of stuff, right? Great. But it goes to what I was saying earlier. Really taking a lens and identifying that there is a problem that can be solved. And technology is often the best way to be able to solve it right now. So if I'm an investor, I'm looking at how do we clearly identify a problem that may not have been obvious. When people say to me, who are your competitors in exactly what you do? I can't say nobody. People and broken processes, those are the competitors. So if we look at and understand exactly a problem, whether it's getting assistance in being able to fill out legal forms or kind of court forms for standard people. Maybe it's a process where, again, you're dealing with a volume issue, that people have a problem that they find inaccessible. And if I could see something where technology was thrown at that made that problem more accessible and there was a clear solution, that's the type of thing that would really pique my interest.
I love it. So you would invest wherever there are, in legal, wherever there are broken processes.
Absolutely.
Target-rich environment.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pivot a little bit. Surprise, surprise. I want us to stop thinking about what the impact is on the lawyers. I want them to start thinking more, and some are doing a great job at this, on what are the issues facing the clients. We've been so wrapped up in how to use tech to solve legal problems. Well, let's solve the client's problems while we're at it. I mean, it's a subtle thing. And in terms of investing, thank you, Texas, for your wonderful decision to forbid non-lawyers from having the name officer.
Maybe we'll just break that down for this audience if they're not familiar. Keep me honest on this. So, in Texas, at a law firm in particular, folks with the C-suite, like a chief innovation officer, must be.
Well, the ethics ruling says that because to protect against non-lawyers sharing the money, that you cannot, that a non-lawyer cannot have the word officer or I always forget the second one. It's similar. Well, guess what? We at ALM we did we researched it, and of the AmLaw 100 and I believe the 200, we found 3 positions that weren't CIO, which was my sort of snotty way of getting around to saying, I don't have money to invest because I'm a journalist. But what I want to see the law firms invest in is the people that don't have law degrees, because the biggest mistake they are making is not recognizing, and I've preached this for a long time, that it takes everybody on the team, just like baseball, because if you aren't acknowledging and treating your professionals who don't happen to be lawyers, you're not going to get the wonderful work out of them because they're going to go find other jobs. And I think it's so important that the big firms really start being better and better. And some are excellent, and some of them really get this. But it's something that I've been obsessed with for my entire career.
I'm not going to let go of my investment question, because a lot of what MaRS does is it's a hub, and it connects resources to the folks that need it. And so I'm just going to keep coming back on the panel. Where would you invest your money, other than Kira Systems?
So 3 areas that I would.
But you won't be investing Kira.
Well, I expect Mitch will give you a lot of this, what he should, except for we've never taken outside investment, and I do not see that changing anytime soon. 3 areas that I think about. First of all, I'm probably stealing his thunder on this because I suspect he'll talk about it, but so I'll let him describe it. But the sort of bottom of the pyramid, lots of just underserved, like lots of people who like legal advice that can't afford it, can't get it. Vast market there that is underserved. Second area that I've been thinking about a lot is just corporate law. You think about litigation technology, and like the litigation technology sphere has spawned a lot of very sort of valuable companies. There's actually more corporate lawyers at sort of most large firms, and they have very little technology to choose from. So beyond some sort of players like us in the contract software space and some things like virtual data rooms and like Word and Outlook and the like, there's very little technology targeted towards corporate lawyers, and I don't see why that would be the case given how many of them there are and how much money those practices make and how honorable their work is. The third thing that I would be thinking about is, are there areas where technology can enable new processes? So not even fixing broken processes, but are there things you can do with this new technology that you just couldn't even imagine doing before, right? So like for us, we think a lot about the fact that a typical M&A due diligence project is probably reviewing 100 contracts to do a $100 million acquisition. But in fact, like a $100 million company has like 5,000 to 10,000 contracts probably. And so that means that law firms right now are missing like 90% of what they could be reviewing, and they're missing it because the clients don't feel like paying them like $500 to $1,000 to review a contract. So I think like the really exciting opportunity that we and I think some other companies are thinking about is just, are there processes that you can undertake that just wouldn't even be possible without greater efficiency? And I think these things can really fit in well with current law firm business models because they can enable law firms to just still make money the exact same way, but like do it on a larger scale and helping clients solve their problems better.
Great. Mitch, you've got a very global perspective based on your work that you do with your writing as well as your travel.
Right, so let me take it in a slightly different direction. So if I'm looking at a legal services supplier, a delivery mechanism, whatever you want to call it, let's not use law firms anymore because it's an industry now. I'm looking at something that provides a unique client experience through a proprietary mechanism, okay? Something that doesn't have key partner risk. So if you look at a law firm IPO like Beagle 2 weeks ago, right, in the UK, Legal Futures had this article about would you invest in Beagle? Beagle is a commercial law firm in the UK. And my response was quite simple. I said, well, if you can show me that the clients aren't tied to the partners who will leave in 5 years when their tie-up arrangement is gone, then I'll think about it. If you can show me that you have a unique client experience that is different from every other of your competitors, And that's driven by unique proprietary mechanisms, systems, processes that do not leave the firm, but are specific to that firm, then sure. But I'm not going to invest in something that can blow apart like Keenan Blakey did a year and a half ago.
Interesting. Dan?
Yeah, so 3 things. And I'll be so direct as to sort of call out a couple of areas, but I didn't practice in either of these areas, so the advice was worth what you're paying for it. I think immigration is a really interesting area. It's a system of, like we were talking earlier, of chutes and ladders, right? If this happens, then this is the case. If this happens, then this is the case. I think very easily, and I was talking to a really forward-thinking immigration lawyer in the Seattle area just a couple weeks ago, and there's really nothing out there.
Oh, yes, there is.
Well, they're at least what he told me. I think FileRight, I think, is doing some
Judy
stuff.
Earl is doing
So
amazing things.
I think immigration is a good, interesting. I would lump in that same category bankruptcy. Again, when you think about a decision tree, I think the opportunities are really interesting. Stepping it up a level. I think so much of what, and I can riff forever on sort of the middle market that's underserved. I won't do that, but I think so much of what we struggle with in the law is, and particularly in serving consumers, and what consumers really struggle with in consuming legal information is a design problem. And we as an industry have made it intentionally difficult for people to understand, engage with, and comprehend the law. And I think if there is and I think design-centered solutions and design thinking there are huge opportunities in taking these massive amounts of data that we have now and just making them more consumable to people, making those experiences more interesting, making them more intuitive, and making them easier to understand.
That's a commercial for MaRS. I have to say that's a lot of what MaRS does in terms of getting those, getting that population interested in a vertical like the very successful fintech cluster that was launched recently. I think you're hitting on a big part of what MaRS can deliver.
And then my super last point is, I also think, and we were talking about this earlier, the market for legal services is big. The market for selling to lawyers is smaller, arguably. But when you talk about like raising money,
so it's
these seem like big markets.
Just so the audience knows, I threw this slide up. It's an $800 billion market, legal services. So
and there's an argument that there's another sort of kind of hidden or captured 200, 300 billion in there from people who would purchase legal services if it were provided at the right cost and in a manner, again, going back to the design piece, that was simple and efficient and effective. But at least in the States, like you run up against a legal problem and you just do everything you can to avoid hiring one.
Sanjay, I'm going to say that you're a successfully exited entrepreneur who's probably done a little investing in the legal services space. Am I right? I am. So I would really like to hear your take on this question.
I think it's important to look at this industry as bringing technology and globalization together to enhance the way people work with lawyers. I would not invest in companies where the attitude is eliminate the lawyers. Or, we can automate this so we don't need lawyers anymore. Or we can ship this off to India so that we don't need the lawyers to do X. It actually doesn't work that way. I think the businesses that are going to be the most successful are the businesses where they're using technology and or global resources to enhance the way people are working with lawyers to get something done in a much more intelligent way, a much more efficient way, and something that makes much more sense for the client. You could be selling to the lawyer, you could be selling to the individual who needs the lawyer's help, but I think the businesses that get it, that we're enhancing the entire environment, will be much more successful than the ones that are trying to eliminate lawyers.
Here's what I like about this panel, and how I know we got the right mix in the crowd to come and do this for us. They want to keep going. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But here's the good news: they're going to stick around. It's time for some cocktails. And the nice thing about MaRS, they say this all the time. I've seen this in action. MaRS is all about those wonderful collisions you can have with folks and all of the great stuff that can come out of that. So I encourage you all to mix, collide, and start some conversations, not only with our panelists, but I happen to know quite a few people in this audience have some very interesting things to say and contribute on this topic. With that, I'm going to hand it back to my partner, Frank.
I get a really strong sense that nobody's running out of here in a big hurry. You should hang out with us, have a drink. LegalX is open for business. Thank you for coming.